Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 20th day of session, 68th Wyoming Legislature, February the 10th, 2025. It looks like most of us all are assembled, not having any committee meetings this morning, and on one meeting, you should mostly all be here. So please, Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Convening roll call for the 20th day, February 10th, 2025. Alamand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown, Gary? Brown, Landon? Byron? Campbell, Elisa? Campbell, Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Filer? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haraldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Locke?
Present.
Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins? Excused? Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Worf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker.
I believe you can close it. I think both of those folks are not going to be here.
59 present, 3 excused.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's everybody. Those other folks that were not available with us have called in and said that they're going to either be later today or maybe not make it today. So anyway, moving on. The prayer today will be led by Pastor Victor Paul Brow of Midwest Wyoming. He is the pastor of Haven of Rest Church, and also, ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Brow is the mayor of Edgerton, Wyoming. And so he is kind of all of that and a bag of chips that we get to have open our session today. And so please rise and Pastor Brow, please lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Before we start, let's go ahead and pray for the people that are struggling with loss today here at the Capitol and those that are not feeling good. We've been, even myself, struggle with those kind of things. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, thank you for your mercy towards us. Thank you for loving us. Lord, we pray that you would come down and touch those here and those that are suffering with pain and loss. We pray that you give them peace. Your word says that be careful for nothing, but in all things with prayer and supplication and thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And that's what we're doing today, is coming before you and bringing this to you. Please be with those that are not feeling well. We pray, Lord, that you just watch over them and help them to heal up quickly, and be with those that have suffered loss. We pray your blood upon them, Father, and give them that peace that passes all understanding. And I pray be with us this day, Father, in Jesus' name, amen. And if you would let me, can I go ahead and read a...
You are certainly welcome. Yes, sir, please.
I have a scripture from Psalms 103, somebody that definitely suffered a lot of pain, and that was King David. King David was chased for many years by Saul, King Saul, and he had to hide in caves, and he had to keep from being killed. And this is what he had to say, Psalms 103, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all of his benefits, who forgives all your iniquities, who heals all thy diseases, who redeems thy life from destruction, who crowns thee with loving kindness and tender mercies, who satisfies thy mouth with good things, so thy youth should be renewed like the eagles. The Lord executeth righteousness and judgment for those that are oppressed. He made known his ways unto Moses, his acts unto the children of Israel. The Lord is merciful and gracious and slow to anger, plenteous in mercy. He will not always chide, neither keep his anger forever. He will not deal with us after our sins, praise God, nor reward us according to our iniquities. For as the heaven is high above the earth, so is his mercy towards them that love him. As far as the east is to the west, so far as he removed our transgressions from us. Praise God for that, right? That he loves us. He sent his son to die for us, and he is always there with us. And if you accepted Christ as your Savior, he's inside you today. That makes us family. And thank you for letting me be here today. Thank you. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Pastor Brown. We appreciate you being here and for bringing us the word. Fellow members and guests, please join me in the salute to our flag. Yeah, high five each other, wave across. I'm going to stay here if you don't mind. I will not be coming down off the dais this time, so just in case. Thank you, Representative Worf. That's very nice. Do that again for everybody, will you? That's beautiful. Obviously had some practice with that. Very nice. Okay, members, we've got a couple of privileges of the floor. It looks like I got people stacked up at 3 of the 4 microphones here, so we got some good things we can be doing. And we do have quite an assembly of young people and leadership up here above, so I'm assuming we're going to find out who these folks are and what they're here to look at with us today. Representative Singh, if you would please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. So just an update from your courtesy committee here. We actually have 2 super secret birthdays that either happened during the weekend or even today. And so Representative Thayer had her birthday over the weekend, and Representative Gary Brown, it is his birthday today. And so let's go ahead.
Representative Brown, you thought you could keep that from us, didn't you? Congratulations and happy birthday, Representative Brown. Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today in our gallery, we have students from across Wyoming. They attended the CTA breakfast this morning and witnessed Governor Gordon signing a proclamation declaring February as Career and Technical Education Month. These high school and college students in technical education classes who also participated in 1 in 5 of Wyoming's 5 recognized career and technical student organizations. A career and technical student organization, CTSO, is a group that provides students with the opportunity to develop vocational skills, leadership abilities, and professional knowledge. These organizations are affiliated with our schools and focus on specific career and technical education fields, such as ag, business, health science, engineering, welding, automotive and diesel technology, construction, machining, or hospitality, just to name a few. CTSO members often participate in competitions, community service projects, and leadership activities, which help them gain hands-on experience, build their resumes, and prepare for future careers in the trades. Please stand when you are announced. From FBLA, we have members of the state officer team accompanied by their state director, Andrew Borgali, and I may have butchered that last name. The FCCLA state president is here with us as well. Please stand and be recognized. The FFA state officer team is here with their state director, Stacy Broda. And finally, the Skills USA state officer team is here with their state director, Janie Wilcox. If there are any other student members, advisors, staff, or alumni in the gallery representing FBLA, FCCLA, FFA, or Skills USA, or possibly DECA, can you please stand? Thank you all for being here today.
Welcome to the House. Thank you for being here, young people. It is a privilege to be able to acknowledge you and your advisors here in the 68th Legislature. We're thankful for what you're learning and what you're doing and what you're going to provide, not only to Wyoming, but if you would so see fit to think you might find a better state than this if you would happen to leave here, we know that you will take Wyoming values and the quality that you are to those other states, and there'll be a blessing there as well. So thank you for all that you do. And I got to give a shout out to my blue and gold. FFA is a pivotal part of what I grew up with. It used to be called VOAG, and they changed it to CTE, but vocational agriculture, and that's where I learned to be able to speak, do creed speaking, extemporaneous and prepared speech. So all of these different organizations, these opportunities for our young people provide great tools and learning to help them to be better and more productive adults. And we're thankful for your participation in these, and we look forward to your success as you move ahead in the future of your lives. Thank you for being here. We appreciate what you do and your advisors. You couldn't do it without them. So thank you all for being here. Okay, next order of business. I would like to introduce, Representative Heft. What do you got going?
Privilege of the floor, Mr. Speaker.
Please.
Thank you. To go along with that, I'd like to introduce this morning from my hometown, Victoria Beaudry. She's in the gallery here somewhere.
West Gallery.
I worked with her father, and I'm very proud of her. She's part of the Skills USA officer team, and she's part of this Career and Technical Education Month. So welcome to the House.
Welcome to the House. Thank you for being here with us. Also, I'd like to announce that we do have what we'd like to refer to as our intern return. Yes, it works. Miss Heidi Shade, she had mentioned that she might be able to come back and be with us again. Well, she made it happen. So welcome back to the House, Heidi. Thank you for coming back. Got a journal committee report, and then I'll be right with you. Do you want to go to that first, or do journal committee? Journal committee, let's do that. Let's stay on our list and get right down to him.
Your journal committee reports that the Journal of February 7th, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Jarvis and Posey.
Thank you, reading clerk. Next, we have no messages from the Senate, so Representative Yin, please.
Mr. Speaker, privilege first, my apologies.
Please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So in the North Gallery, we have folks that are here from all across Wyoming who are here today to advocate for accessible and affordable health care. Wyoming is one of 10 and the only one in the West that has not expanded Medicaid, and Healthy Wyoming is committed to finding the right solutions to providing all Wyomingians with the health care they need. So please say hi to the folks that are in the North Gallery. Thank you.
Thank you also for being here and welcome to the House. Appreciate you being here. Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Rule 5-6, I move the House recall House Bill 128, which is the Public Health Emergency Definition Amendments from Committee 10. Following the approval of that motion, it is my intent to then move that the House Committee, House Bill 128 to Committee of the Whole.
Second, under House Rule 5-6, the motion to recall must be seconded by 5 members. So we have Brown, Lucas, Singh, hold still. Okay. The motion has been seconded by 5 members. It is debatable as to the advisability and the motion. It requires a majority of the elected members. Is there anyone who would like to debate this motion? Representative Yin, for your first time. Do you want to bring her? You can go ahead and explain what the reasoning is and why you would want to move this bill, please. And then we'll go second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We basically just ran out of time in the committee for this, so I'm just trying to do due diligence to try and get this bill forwarded a little bit further.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So members, we spent a lot of time on a lot of bills in that committee where the bill was referred to. So I guess the question is, what makes this bill deserving of all the bills that died because of lack of a hearing that would make this the one bill that we should excuse from the whole process to hear?
Thank you, Representative. Representative Harshman, for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question for the bringer of the motion. Did the bill have a hearing? Was there a vote on the bill, and what was the outcome of that vote if it had a hearing in committee? Thank you. I haven't looked it up online, but thank you.
Any other members? Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for. So I don't think there wasn't not an appetite from the committee to hear this bill. I think there was the appetite for it. I think the good bringer is correct. We just ran out of time, and to the good representative from the area of the Tetons, there were very few that were not heard in committee, that were assigned to committee. So on and for.
Any other members? Further discussion? Seeing none, second time. Representative Yin, for your second time.
So members, I have a lot of bills that didn't make it. I know you guys have bills that didn't make it. Again, I'm confused on why we would pick one bill and bring that out of the process. Again, you heard it was literally just for a lack of time. There was no other reason other than lack of time. Should we do this with all the bills that were sent to committee and then re-refer them to committee of the whole? Because, I mean, maybe I would like to do that if we do it for this one.
Any other members for their second time? Representative Harshman, Representative Rodriguez-Williams. Want to speak a second time? Rodriguez-Williams, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just push back and state that these rules are here for a reason, and it, it's up to the body whether or not they decide to bring one to the floor or not. Specifically, this one to committee of the whole. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Representative Harshman, for your second time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I just got online, the bill was not heard in committee, so the chairman of that committee did not schedule it. And I just think, I guess I haven't seen this type of motion for a bill that has not been heard in committee. Sometimes it's brought for a bill that dies on a close vote in committee. But so the bill has not had a hearing. I don't know, there's 50 House bills at least, maybe 70 House bills on committee of the whole. And why this one would come out of committee without a hearing and without public input, and come to the last day of committee of the whole for House bills. I don't know, I don't see why we're doing it. We've never, in my memory, have done it for a bill that has not been heard. And so I will be a no on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any others? Well, I guess that's it for the second time. Back to the bringer, Representative McCann. Question being called. Motion has been that we are now voting on whether to recall House Bill 128 from Committee Number 10. The Chief Clerk will call the roll. This is a majority vote, ladies and gentlemen. Then if this passes, we will move on to another motion here that will require a 2/3 majority to be able to move the rules. So please proceed.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown, Gary? Brown, Landon? Byron? Campbell, Elisa? Campbell, Kevin? Chestick? Clauston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Filer? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Repeat? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver, excused. Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Wharf? Williams? Winter, excused. Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 31 aye, 28 no, 3 excused.
Having received a majority vote of the elected members, House Bill 128 is recalled from Committee Number 10. Representative McCann,
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
what is your point, Representative?
Just, my question is, does that motion need a majority of the members elected or the members present? It was announced, I thought I heard 31. Is that what I heard?
31 is correct,
That
sir.
is not a majority of the members elected, if that is the rule. So I want to pause and make sure that it's
That's a good
majority
question.
members present and not elected.
That is, we have a majority of elected members. That is true. Very good.
So, Mr. Speaker, I would say
Did
the
it-
motion failed.
The motion did fail then. All right. Representative Yin, first, please.
Mr. Speaker, I move HR-17, which is an amendment to House Rule 12-9. And members, you should see in your email this rule. It's linked to the WyoLedge website. So members of the public, if you want to look at it, you go to Session Information, Rules, It's HR-17 in that list of amendments. So members, this will require a 2/3 vote, but I wanted to bring it before you. This is the issue that we had last week where the question was called during a delete the enacting clause amendment. So the goal of the rule change I bring before you is really just to enshrine what we did exactly last week to make sure that there's no hiccups in any future legislature to call the question on a delete the enacting clause. I know now we have precedent, but I think it's good to enshrine it in rules, just so in the future, if people want to make that motion, we'll know exactly what to do. And the motion's debatable if anyone would like to, but
Yes, the
I just
motion
urge you
is-
to adopt it.
Yep, the motion is debatable. And Representative Yen, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, you did move okay, very good, sir, thank you. You have heard the motion. Is there any discussion, any members to discuss this rule adoption? Representative Haroldson, first time?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So just if you could help lay out where they could find that copy of that amendment, just so everyone could get an eye on that, that'd be amazing. Thank you.
Homepage, session information at the bottom. And there's a tab at the top that says rules. Give you a moment to get there and take a good look at it. While they're finding that, if you have questions on where that's at, please ask. Do not hesitate. Representative Wharf, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to rise in opposition to this. I don't like the fact that it will cease debate, and I think it's not lost on me. There's some people that have felt like there's been some filibustering that's gone on in this chamber, but I think it's important that we have debate. I think it's a mistake for us, and I appreciate the bringer of this to try and add clarity to that rule. But I have a problem if that's all you got to do is make that motion and it automatically forces a withdrawal of that act and really ceases the debate. And I guess I would be more supportive if the body could override that. But the way I read that is it's a pass-fail. And I think that's wrong. I think it's better like we did, where we came back and we voted at whether to continue the debate or not. I think it's up to this body to determine when that debate ceases, and I see this rule as an impediment to that debate. So I rise in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wharf. Representative Provenza, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So to that point, this rule only comes into fruition under 12-9. So it's only applicable after we have passed the motion to end debate. So we've ended debate already. Assuming that the motion passes, debate is now ended, and now it's just a clarification of what happens with that delete the enacting clause amendment. So this isn't doing anything further beyond what we already put into rules this session, which was that 12-9, the previous question. Which takes a 2/3 vote. So once you've passed the 2/3 vote to end debate, now you are allowing for all you're doing is saying we're putting to rest this amendment and we're going to go straight to the bill vote. All this is doing, this is an efficiency amendment. This is just saving us time so we don't have to call rules and figure out what do we do with the delete the enacting clause. So we're just trying to save the body some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Brown, for your first time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is honestly just a cleanup, and this is exactly what was decided when we had this situation happen last week. So kind of give you an idea of what would have happened is, I invoked Rule 12-9. That came to this floor. The body then decided, okay, we want to end debate. Well, what that happens is that becomes the previous question. And the previous question in Mason's and our rules says, you have to take an immediate vote. And that is the move to the question, which is on the floor, which is we wanted to pass the motion to basically decide whether or not we wanted to have the delete the enacting clause. Well, if you put the delete the enacting clause into fruition, if you actually make that happen, then that bill is essentially dead. You kind of are in this limbo situation. Now do you take a vote on a bill that can't be passed? So all we're trying to do here is just say, hey, look, if you are in committee of the whole, you decide to go ahead and pass this motion on a 2/3 vote, it gives the bringer of that amendment the ability, or I'm sorry, in third reading, it brings the ability of that member to come back and remove that debate, or I'm sorry, remove that amendment from the floor. That's all we're trying to do, is just give the availability to pull that from the body and say, I remove this amendment, we've gone through enough of this. Now we can just go straight to the vote on up or down on the bill itself, as opposed to the amendment, which deletes the enacting clause.
Thank you, Representative Brown. Representative Larson Lloyd, for your first time.
Thank you, and maybe one of you rule gurus can, I'm a little bit lost, because when we delete the enacting clause, it's an understood that you will remove the motion and carry on for the vote. I think what I heard the previous speaker say is it gives them then the option to remove it. And I want to make sure that, because I think the intent is to require that they then withdraw their motion. And so just clarify that at some point, please.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Harshman, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the bringer of the rules motion. And again, I think he stated, but this in no way affects 12-9, which requires a 2/3 to silence the body. So this in no way, my question is, affects that rule. And I would say there was a little oddness, but it is our precedence, custom, tradition that when the debate's over, you withdraw the amendment on the delete the enacting clause. So if this amendment doesn't pass, I think we'll continue on like we've been. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for your first time? Seeing none. Second time? None. To the bringer, Representative Yin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, members, so this does exactly what we did last week. So the issue was I had a point of order that we were doing it out of order, because if you call the question on a delete the enacting clause, we are supposed to be voting on that delete the enacting clause amendment. But the intent of calling the question on that amendment specifically is so we can get to the vote on the bill, not on the amendment. So this doesn't change. I mean, this makes it makes it so we treat the delete the enacting clause the way we always treat the delete the enacting clause, which is we force its withdrawal at the end of debate. And it's just making that clear. It still requires a 2/3, right? This still applies to all of 12-9. And this way we treat it just like we treat any other motion to end debate. So regardless of what the type of amendment is. But because we have this tradition of withdrawing the delete the enacting clause at the end of debate on third reading, we need to treat it differently. And so, as the good representative from Laramie County said, this cleans up our rules to make it match what we did last week.
Members, the motion is to adopt House Rule 12-9, Section D. Pursuant to House Rule 1-3, this motion requires an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the elected members. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Feiler? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? excused. Thayer. Washut. Wasserberger. Webb. Weber. Worf. Williams. Winter, excused. Wiley. Yin. Mr. Speaker. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Allemand, no to aye. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 57 aye, 2 no, 3 excused.
By your vote, House Rule 12-9, Section D has been adopted. Representative Harshman.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to invoke House Rule 9-2 to explain a personal matter.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this rule grants me 5 minutes at the mic, and I assure you and fellow members, I certainly won't take that long. Members Article 3, Section 12 of the Wyoming Constitution allows each house to discipline its members for contempt or disorderly behavior. I thought about bringing a motion to reprimand a fellow House member over the weekend after I read a guest column in an online statewide newspaper. Mr. Speaker, the duly elected members of this House who bring bills and bring ideas and vote on hundreds of items a day don't do it because they're lobbyists for a group. The elected members of this citizen legislature cast our votes and bring our ideas because of sincerely held belief that it's good for the people we represent and will move this precious state forward. For a fellow member to say that we are lobbyists because of a vote we cast or an idea we have is reprehensible. And Mr. Speaker and members, for the representative from Campbell County to sit down, write, and submit an article to a statewide paper that states that members of this House are lobbyists is to impugn the motives of the members and accuse members of being financially interested in their vote. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Speaker and members. Words matter. And finally, members, we've all made mistakes. The Lord knows I've made mistakes on this floor. And you look up in the balcony of these young people and you look behind them, these pictures on the wall, all these former members who sat here and long days and late nights debating these issues. Looking down on us, I think it's important to remember who we are and what we stand for in Wyoming. Words matter. So behaviors like these damage the collegiality of this body and the respect for this institution and the entire state of Wyoming. And here in Wyoming, we're better than that. So I want to assure the people of this great state and their duly elected citizen legislature, the last of its kind really in the world, Mr. Speaker and members, that we're going to continue working for Wyoming. You sent us here and we're going to continue the work. And I want us, as we head into this second half now of this thing, we can do better than that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members.
Okay, members, moving on. We have adopted the new rule. We will now move on to introduction, reading, and reference of bills. And there's a bunch of them. Let me find my spot here. All right, we are at that order of business and Senate files on first reading. The first Senate file for consideration is Senate file number 1.
Senate File 1, sponsored by Appropriations, General Government Appropriations, an act relating to supplemental appropriations for the operation of state government for the fiscal biennium commencing July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2026.
Are you ready? Senate file number 1 will be assigned to committee number 2, appropriations. Next bill for our consideration. Reading clerk. Senate file number 6.
Senate File 6, sponsored by Judiciary.
First reading of the bill.
Residential property, removal of unlawful occupant.
Senate file number 6 will be assigned to our committee number 1, Judiciary. Next Senate file for our consideration will be Senate file 77.
Senate File 77, sponsored by Senator Hutchins.
First reading of the bill of the Senate file.
Compelled speech is not free speech.
Senate file 77 will also be assigned to our committee number 1, Judiciary. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 114.
Senate File 114, sponsored by Senator Landon.
First reading of the Senate file.
Missing persons, reported requirement.
Senate file 114 will be assigned to committee number 1, Judiciary. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 40.
Senate File 40, sponsored by Appropriations.
First reading of the file.
Zoning protest petition amendments.
Senate file 40 will be assigned to our committee number 2, Appropriations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 60.
Senate File 60, sponsored by Senator French.
First reading of the file.
Sales tax distribution rates.
Senate file 60 will be assigned also to committee number 2, Appropriations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 96.
Senate File 96, sponsored by Senator Ide.
First reading of the file.
Wyoming Gold Act.
Senate file 96 will also be assigned to our committee number 2, Appropriations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 152.
Senate File 152, sponsored by Senator Barlow.
First reading of the file.
Wildfire Management Task Force and State Forester.
Senate file 152 will be assigned to our committee number 2, Appropriations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 168.
Senate File 168, sponsored by Senator Hicks.
First reading of the file.
Budget Reserve Account repeal.
Senate file 168 will be assigned to our committee number 2, Appropriations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 48.
Senate File 48, sponsored by Revenue.
First reading of the file.
Business Property Exemption.
Senate file 48 will be assigned to our committee number 3, Revenue. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 49.
Senate File 49, sponsored by Revenue.
First reading of the file.
Tangible Personal Property Index and Depreciation.
Senate file 49 will be assigned to committee number 3, Revenue. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 58.
Senate File 58, sponsored by Senator Olson.
First reading of the file.
Elimination of sales tax on firearms.
Senate file 58 will be assigned to our committee number 3, Revenue. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 13.
Senate File 13, sponsored by Education.
First reading of the file.
Reading Assessment and Intervention Amendments.
Senate file 13 will be assigned to our committee number 4, Education. Next Senate file for our consideration will be Senate file 72.
Senate File 72, sponsored by Senator Brennan.
First reading of the file.
Summer Vacation Preservation Act.
Senate file 72 will be assigned to also to our committee number 4, Education. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 73.
Senate File 73, sponsored by Senator Brennan.
First reading of the file.
Charter School Funding Amendments.
Senate file 73 will be assigned to our committee number 4, Education. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 86.
Senate File 86, sponsored by Senator Larson.
First reading of the file.
Alternative Teaching Certificate.
Senate file 86 will be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 131.
Senate File 131, sponsored by Senator Driscoll.
First reading of the file.
Charter School Leasing.
Senate file 131 be assigned to our committee number 4, Education. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 63.
Senate File 63, sponsored by Senator Crago.
First reading of the file.
State Lands Fencing 2.
Senate file 63 will be assigned to our committee number 5, Agriculture. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 64.
Senate File 64, sponsored by Senator Steinmetz.
First reading of the file.
Wyoming opposes mandatory electronic ID devices, livestock.
Senate file 64 will be assigned to our committee number 5, Agriculture. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 81.
Senate File 81, sponsored by Agriculture.
First reading of the file.
Tax exemption, property owned by the state.
Senate file 81 will be assigned to committee number 5, Agriculture. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 120.
Senate File 120, sponsored by Senator Salazar.
First reading of the file.
Wyoming Prime Act.
Senate File 120 will be assigned to our committee number 5, Agriculture. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File number 2.
Senate File 2, sponsored by Travel.
First reading of the file.
Hunting licenses, weighted bonuses, point system.
Senate File number 2 will be assigned to our committee number 6, Travel. Next Senate file, actually Senate Joint Resolution number 3.
Senate Joint Resolution 3, sponsored by Senator Nethercott.
First reading of the resolution.
Commemorating Nellie Taylor Ross.
Senate Joint Resolution number 3 will be assigned to our committee number 6, Travel. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 42.
Senate File 42, sponsored by Senator Guru.
First reading of the file.
Resort Hotel Liquor Licenses.
Senate File 42 will be assigned to our committee number 6, Travel. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 149.
Senate File 149, sponsored by Senator Pappas.
First reading of the file.
Wildlife Conservation License Plates Amendments.
Senate File 149 will also be assigned to our committee number 6, Travel. Next Senate file for our consideration will be Senate File 78.
Senate File 78, sponsored by Senator Hutchins.
First reading of the file.
Distribution of unsolicited absentee ballot request forms.
Senate File 78 will be assigned to our committee number 7, Corporations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 98.
Senate File 98, sponsored by Senator Olson.
First reading of the file.
School Board Trustees, Party Affiliation.
Senate File 98 will be assigned to committee number 7, Corporations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 127.
Senate File 127, sponsored by Senator Boner.
First reading of the file.
Administrative Rules, Legislative Review.
Senate File 127 will be assigned to committee number 7, Corporations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 25.
Senate File 25, sponsored by Transportation.
First reading of the file.
Electronic Lien and Title System.
Senate File 25 will be assigned to our committee number 8, Transportation. Next Senate file, number 32.
Senate File 32, sponsored by Transportation.
First reading of the file.
Unpaved roads, speed limits, amendments.
Senate File 32 will be assigned to committee number 8, Transportation. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 33.
Senate File 33, sponsored by Transportation.
First reading of the file.
Non-citizen driver's license and ID card revisions.
Senate File 33 will be assigned to our committee number 8, Transportation. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 15.
Senate File 15, sponsored by Minerals.
First reading of the file.
Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, regulation of pits.
Senate File 15 will be assigned to our committee number 9, Minerals. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 16.
Senate File 16, sponsored by Minerals.
First reading of the file.
Industrial Sitting, Tribal Notification.
Senate File 16 will also be assigned to committee number 9, Minerals. Next Senate file for our consideration will be Senate File 20.
Senate File 20, sponsored by Minerals.
First reading of the file.
Oil and gas bonding, options, and bonding pools.
Senate File number 20 will also be assigned to committee number 9, Minerals. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 23.
Senate File 23, sponsored by Labor.
First reading of the file.
Handicap placards, healthcare providers, approval.
Senate File 23 will be assigned to our committee number 10, Labor. Senate File number 62, next bill for our Senate file for our consideration.
Senate File 62, sponsored by Senator Larson.
First reading of the Senate file.
Restrooms and publicly funded schools, 2.
Senate File 62 will be assigned to our committee number 10, Labor. Senate File for our consideration, 74.
Senate File 74, sponsored by Labor.
First reading of the file.
Immunity for drug overdose reporting.
Senate File 74 will be assigned to committee number 10, Labor. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 113.
Senate File 113, sponsored by Senator Hutchins.
First reading of the file.
Brader Opportunity Act.
Senate File 113 will be assigned to committee number 10, Labor. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go back to our Senate budget bill. There is some verbiage that we need to use here in order for it to have it read in. So Senate File number 1, please, reading clerk.
Senate File 1, sponsored by Appropriations.
Senate File number 1, first reading of the bill.
General Government Appropriations.
Pursuant to Joint Rule 14-1E, number 1, Senate File number 1 is referred to Committee number 2, Appropriations. There we go. We got to make sure we have all the i's dotted and the t's crossed, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, moving on. Reports from standing committees. We should have, re-referrals? Okay, we need one re-referral. Thank you. Reading clerk, please.
House Bill 249, sponsored by Representative Nyman, runoff elections and act relating to elections. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, corporations, election, and political subdivisions, to whom is referred House Bill 249, runoff elections, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation to do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Webb, Weber. Noes, Representative Yin. Representative Knapp, Chairman.
Representative Knapp.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Your Corporations Committee number 7 would ask for a re-referral, House Bill 249, to your Committee number 2, Appropriations.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman Knapp, seeing no objections, so ordered. Oh, okay. Representative Knapp, you're going to need to re-refer that from general file to appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would re-refer House Bill 249 from general file to your Committee number 2, Appropriations.
There we go. Thank you very much, Chairman. Without objection? Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have no bills on second reading, so bills on third reading and final passage. Consent list. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the third reading consent list consisting of the following 8 bills. And if you refresh your screen, you'll see these 8 bills. Some of them have been removed. House Bill 81, House Bill 219, House Bill 234, House Bill 264, House Bill 294, House Bill 299, House Bill 311, and House Bill 323.
Excuse me. Members, would anyone like to remove any of those bills from the consent list? Representative Harshman.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 294 will have an amendment coming.
House Bill 294 has been removed. Any other bills to be removed from the consent list? Okay, I have House Bill 81, 219, 234, 264, 299, 311, and 323. Will the reading clerk please read the bills on the consent list?
House Bill 81, sponsored by Representative Yin, regulatory reduction, mortgage loan originating and licensing, and act relating to trade and commerce, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 219, sponsored by Representative Locke, county and municipal roads on state lands, easements granted, and act relating to state lands being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 234, sponsored by Representative Allemand, Second Amendment Financial Privacy Act amendments, an act relating to the protection of constitutional rights being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 264, sponsored by Representative Singh, Central Bank Digital Currencies Prohibitions, an act relating to the administration of government being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 299, sponsored by Representative Posey, Online Sports Wagering Amendments, an act relating to gaming being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 311, sponsored by Representative Locke, exemption for transported fuel and power sales amendments, an act relating to taxation and revenue being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 323, sponsored by Representative Wasserberger, SNAP benefits waiver request, an act relating to welfare being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Okay, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the House? The chief clerk will call the roll.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clauston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Feiler? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver, excused. Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Wharf? Williams? Winter, excused. Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for House Bill 81, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for House Bill 219, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Allemand, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 1 no, 3 excused. As for House Bill 234, are there any changes? Chestick, aye to no. Further changes? Nicholas, aye to no. Storer, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 56 aye, 3 no, 3 excused. As for House Bill 264, are there any changes? Stivar, aye to no. Nicholas, aye to no. Sherwood, aye to no. Provenza, aye to no. Harshman, aye to no. Campbell Elisa, aye to no. Washut, aye to no. Larson Lloyd, aye to no. Storer, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 50 aye, 9 no, 3 excused. As for House Bill 299, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Brady, aye to no. Weber, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Heft, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Lean, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Brown Gary, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. McCann, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Ottman? Ottman, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 45 aye, 14 no, 3 excused. As for House Bill 311, are there any changes? Nicholas, aye to no. Chestick, aye to no. Further changes, Storer, aye to no. Further changes, Provenza, aye to no. Further changes. Closing vote, vote closed. 55 aye, 4 no, 3 excused. As for House Bill 323, are there any changes? Storer, aye to no. Provenza, aye to no. Sherwood, aye to no. Chestick, aye to no. Campbell, Elisa, aye to no. Nicholas, aye to no. Posey, aye to no. Thayer, aye to no. Jarvis, aye to no. Yin, aye to no. Connolly, aye to no. Further changes. Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 48 aye, 11 no, 3 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bills 81, 219, 234, 264, 299, 311, and 323 have passed the House. All right. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 7-3, I move that the following 5 bills be laid back for one day. House Bill 209, House Bill 211, House Bill 228, House Bill 294, and House Bill 320.
You have heard the motion of the Majority Floor Leader. Is there any discussion? Seeing no objection, it is so ordered. Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move pursuant to Mason's Section 187(6)K and Section 302 to change the order of consideration of bills on general file by placing the following bill as the last item to be taken up on Committee of the Whole today, Senate File 69. And I believe that motion is debatable, so I'd just like to explain as well.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that this bill is at the bottom of our list, but I want to make sure it stays there until tomorrow when we can debate it. And so just keeping it at the bottom, we all have bills we want to get heard today. And today's the last bill, or the last day for House bill consideration on Committee of the Whole. So I just want to make sure that Senate File 69 stays at the bottom until tomorrow. So that's why I made the motion.
Thank you, Representative. Any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Representative Williams, please, for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. On and opposed. I appreciate the consideration. Yes, all these bills are very important, but I can tell you as a representative of my district that property taxes are the #1 issue. And so I will represent my district and oppose the amendment.
Any other members? First time. Representative Yin, first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So members, based on our session schedule, as you know, today is the last day for bills in the Chamber of Origin to pass Committee of the Whole. If we don't pass them today, they will die. So I believe the motion, the intent of the motion is just to make sure that we have time to debate as many House bills as possible. If we put property tax up there, it's very possible that we'll eat a lot of time and kill a lot of House bills.
Representative Wiley, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We had this conversation into last week. You want to have other answers, other workings, other opportunities, other solutions. This is a Senate file. We haven't got to the time to work Senate files yet. Let's lay it back. Let's let everybody have a time to read it, digest it, and work on it. Nothing wrong with that. Let's work on our bills today. This is our last day to work on House bills.
Representative Harshman, first time, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members, we just laid back a half dozen or so House bills till tomorrow. Third reading, final passage, which is fine. I support that. I think this Senate File 69 is a big bill. It's a big deal, and it will take hours of work. So I just think this proposal gives our leadership of this chamber the opportunity to serve its members. Because I tell you, if that Senate file goes up in front of some folks' bills, they're not going to be happy. And it's unnecessary because we're going to hear it first thing tomorrow.
Point of order.
And so.
Your point, Representative, excuse me, Representative, your point?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'm not quite sure what to make of the good representative here from the Windy City's direct look at me when he said that, as if my opposition to the motion, we're going to have some sort of point of order
Representative,
repercussions.
Representative, with all due respect, he was speaking to the reason why we would want to lay it back. I will allow that latitude to do that. Representative, please address the chair. I would rather your gaze be upon me than on other members, if you wouldn't mind. I mean, I'm not that much to look at, but please keep your eyes on me if you can possibly get to make sure that happens. So thank you, Representative.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I hear you. So we'll look at each other. Members actually.
Always good to engage with you,
Actually,
Representative.
I
Please go right
think,
ahead.
you know, eye contact is a big way you communicate, and I was trying to communicate with the good representative from Park County as we're on opposite sides of this. So, no intent, whatever. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, so the point being is that I think this gives you, Majority Floor Leader, the Speaker Pro Tem, frankly, some cover. Because I think if that bill comes up in front of House bills, and you're going to see all those members below that bill go. And I just don't think it's a way, I think it just helps us. I think it helps all of us, and we don't even have to go down that rat hole, because people have put a lot of time into their bills and a lot of work, and this is the last day. And folks, you think, it's the biggest lie the devil ever told, is that you got a lot of time. Oh, I'll bring it next year. Next year's 2/3, Mr. Speaker, to even get it introduced. And so this is our last chance at these House bills. And so on and for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Majority Leader Heiner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm on and for the motion as well. I had no intention of bringing it up today. That's why it's on the very bottom. All you had to do is ask me. That will be dealt with tomorrow, not today, because we do have a lot of House bills to deal with today. And the longer we delay this, the less bills we're going to get to hear today.
Any other members would like to take their first time? Little more time? Ladies and gentlemen, back to the second time. Speak second time to the motion. Seeing none, to the bringer, Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks for the discussion, body. Wasn't trying to impugn any intent of the good Majority Floor Leader. Just want to make sure that we procedurally get this voted on, so we keep it at the bottom. I appreciate the good work of our leadership to make sure that that's stayed at the bottom in the first place. So thank you.
Members, you are voting on the motion. According to, do I need to recite that? Mason's 187 regarding Senate File 69. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown? Gary? Brown? Landon? Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clauston, Connolly, Davis, Eklund, Erickson, Feiler, Geringer, Guggenmass, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins excused, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, excused, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, excused, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Davis, no, are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 39 aye, 20 no, 3 excused.
By your vote, you have chosen to adopt the motion. All right, members. Seeing no one else at the microphones, Representative Majority Floor Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House resolve itself into Committee of the Whole.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion's been adopted. Representative Chairman Brown, please.
Committee of the Whole, please come to order. Let's see here. Thought I heard an otter out there. What's our first bill? 117. First bill for our consideration is House Bill 117. Reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 117, sponsored by Water, Omnibus Water Bill Construction, Act relating to water development projects. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 117, Omnibus Water Bill Construction, respect the reports, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Sherwood, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Bear?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 117 do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. I will have the good representative from the southwest part of the state present the bill, and I'll have the good Vice Chair of Agriculture present the Standing Committee amendment.
Representative Larson JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Today I'm bringing to you the Omnibus Water Bill Construction. And the Select Water Committee over the interim, every interim, we go through the process of reviewing projects as presented by the Water Development Office. And so I'll kind of go through just the basic big chunks of the bill. This is a bill we like to invest in our water infrastructure across the state. And so if you have specific questions on any of the projects within the bill, I encourage you to go to the mic and ask them, and I'll try to do my best, as well as other members in this body who have the detailed binders with different projects listed out in there. So, so the first section of the the bill, this is going to be pages 3 through 11. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 projects. And one of those, the standing committee amendment addresses for additional water supply in the La Perelle area. But 6 of them were recommended by the commission to the Select Water Committee, totaling $5.583 million in new development level 3 projects on those pages. Pages 15 through 38 are our rehab projects, level 3 rehab projects. And those projects total up to $17,094,000, or $17,094,331. And then pages 40 through 57 of the bill deal with our level 3 project amendments. A lot of those are time extensions. Some have some dollars attached to them. And from Water Development Account 1, you have 9.2 million. And from Water Development Account 2, you have 2.9 million. Section 3 of the bill, page 59, there's a repeal of Aladdin Water Supply Project, and a repeal of an amendment that we added last session for water redundancy projects in the state. And then section 4 deals with some transfers of funds and well transfer Belvoir number 5 and 6 in Laramie County. So that's kind of a brief overview of the bill. It's there's a lot of detailed projects in here that that local communities across the state have been putting time and effort in, and have brought them to the Water Development Commission. And we go through a long process of deliberation throughout the interim to select these projects. They're highly vetted, and we even decline funding in certain projects if they're not quite ready with easements and certain things. So we do our best to weed through the good and the bad during the interim, and we come to you with this bill presented here. So I guess I'll stand for any questions. Let the good Vice Chair of Ag explain the Standing Committee amendment, and we'll go from there.
Representative Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Standing Committee amendment, if you can see it there online, addresses, and I can say this because it's on there, the La Perelle Irrigation District. So you know the issues that we're facing there, we've discussed this in this body before, is, well, what do those folks do for their livelihoods while the dam's under construction? They take it out, what do they do when the dam's under construction? This amendment attempts to address some of that and supplement some of their irrigation needs during that construction time. So what this does is appropriate from the LSRA $20 million to allow the investigation of a feasibility study of wells in that area, as well as the construction of those wells, if said feasibility goes through, to allow these people some kind of a remedy in this situation. This was, I thought, a well-developed idea so that these people get to continue on in their livelihoods if this determines to be feasible. There's another addition to that on line 39. And this goes into the Alkali Creek project. And it says there that funds will be reverted on 2026. Well, there's some easements that still need to be developed and worked through. So they requested that that be extended to 2029. And this was kind of a compromise in a difficult situation, that we allow that extension to go to 2029. And so those are the two parts of the Standing Committee amendment, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to address those, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And at this time, I'd like to divide the standing committee amendment because I think there's two issues here that need to be dealt with separately. So Division 1 being lines 1 through 38, and then Division 2 being 39 and 40.
Okay, hold on just a second. I'll rule that is divisible. Which division would you like to take first, Representative?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go with Division 2 first.
Okay, on Division 2, Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members, we've gone through a lot of discussion in the Select Water Committee around the Alkali Creek Reservoir project. And the committee, at the end of the interim, decided, you know what, we need to set this project at 2026 rather than extending it out to 2029. This project has been going on since 2007, trying to gather easements and come to an agreement. And we've had a lot of money just sitting aside, doing nothing. And we kind of set this date at 2026, so that way it can kind of light the fire under them to kind of get the project or the easements in order. So that's why the Select Water Committee decided to put it at 2026. But I guess vote your conscience on whether you think it needs to be extended. Personally, we from the Select Water Committee, that's why we decided to do it, though, is because they've been taking so long to get these easements, and we're not seeing a whole lot of progress over the last 2 years. They've just come back and asked for time extensions after time extensions. So we were trying to encourage them to kind of get the easements wrapped up, and then we can look at funding for that project later. But I guess I'll stand for any questions on that as well, or discussion.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stand in support of this division, and I would just say that having money in an account does not expedite behavior when it comes to getting easements. I think it's important that we deal with the Laprelle Dam issue rapidly. That was the determination of the department, and I think it's great advice. I think we should move forward with that.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So members, the $20 million for wells is an attempt to provide some extra water while we work on the dam. So because the dam is going to come down, as we have been informed, that there won't be any storage left. So the question,
Point
I
of
think.
order, Mr. Chairman.
What is your point, Representative Larson?
It's a dull point, but it is a point, and I'm just wondering if this amendment that we're discussing right now isn't on the Alkali Creek portion of it. So if I'm wrong, I apologize to the body.
I'm seeing a head shaking from the representative in the back of the room, so I believe we are. Representative Yin?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My apologies. So the Alkali Creek portion is a tough question. The reason that so if you look in the bill, you'll see that, and not just the standing committee amendment. So the standing committee amendment changes it from 2026 to 2029. In the bill, we actually had to extend it anyways from 2025 to 2026 because we had given them last year or 2 years ago, whenever we made the initial version, I think it was the year before, to make their deadline 2025 because we knew about this easement problem then. And it was a big issue, and we wanted to give them a deadline to make them actually work on it. It's been a year, and so the question is 3 years enough for them to give them the leeway to continue working on them, or should you only have that one extra year to give them that kick in the backside to make sure that they work on it? So up to you guys on whether you want a shorter deadline or a longer deadline. My guess is that even all the way up to 2029, they're not necessarily going to have this ready.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman. So the reason that we brought the date was because the folks that are working on this project had concerns that the landowners that were holding out on doing this project were going to say, oh, I just have a year, I just have to sit here and not work with this project at all for another year, and then it goes away. So we wanted to expand that date so that there continued to be good faith negotiations. And that was the impetus of what the committee did.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the discussion on that. Yeah, I think vote your conscience on Division 2. It's just become more and more frustrating dealing with this project in Select Water because they seem to not be moving the needle very much. We took a trip to a small community up there in that area right outside where the dam will be constructed, if it's constructed in the future. And there were a lot of concerns a couple of years ago about the way that certain things have gone about on the easements. And so we just kind of were pumping the brakes a little bit with that date, kind of saying, okay, you got to get this figured out, or the state should not have an interest in this. So if they can't come to an agreement, we don't want to force the issue. So we were just trying to expedite that process a little bit, and again, encourage you to vote your conscience on Division 2.
Any further discussion on Division 2? Seeing none? Question being called. All those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, Division 2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That amendment has been adopted. On to Division 1, Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And personally, I'm going to say on and against Division 1, but I'm sure there's going to be other discussion on that. Last session, we passed redundancy projects into the budget, and the commission, the Select Water Committee, and the office determined that redundancy projects are not something we should be doing in the program because they barely have enough money to do the current projects that they're authorized to do under statute. So I just think that, if we're going to be treating all situations fairly, that the 20 million that's in there should not be in there. We should vote this down because the office has determined that redundancy projects are not something they want to do. So that's why I'm on and against that amendment, and look forward to discussion.
Representative Banks.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. On and in favor of Division 1, folks, I don't see any redundancy in this amendment, really. I see the need of people whose livelihoods depend upon that water as a way to supplement those needs. The dam goes out, they're up a creek or down a creek, or however you want to put it on that, but they don't have the ability to grow hay and to have their livelihood dependent on. This was a compromised approach of otherwise a, fend for yourselves kind of a deal, when we can do something like find a way to put in these wells that can have these producers be able to water their ground. I think that if we have the ability to do that, then that's our impetus to do that. This is a delicate situation, and it's not something I think that we can just say, could we have redundancy here or here? I think we have the opportunity right now and the responsibility to act. And this is action that came to us as a committee that we deemed very appropriate to that area, who really are struggling to find what to do. And if we can give them some relief knowing that, hey, you'll have the ability to continue on your livelihood in this area, I think that this body can give them some comfort in doing that. And so I am for sure on and in favor of this amendment.
Representative Larson Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that this is well-intended, misguided, and have huge concerns with the approach we're taking here. We're taking $20 million out of the LSRA, not out of water, and we're providing it for relief to a handful, less than 50, I'm going to guess, and I can be corrected on that, landowners who are in a very tough situation, which I fully acknowledge. Let's just set aside the industry that they're in, where they're producing and they're not able, we talked about the ability to take care of their livelihood. Back in 2020, in that same part of the world, we seen the commodity prices for crude oil go negative. And in that part of the world, there's a significant number of small businessmen who generate $2 to $3 to $10 million a year gross, employ a number of people in that area. And when they have loans, they have equipment, they have employees, they have their whole future, their whole livelihood. When oil went negative, what did we do? Nothing. Not one thing. So as you went down to those large auction places between here and the big city, you just seen all of this industrial equipment, because what they had to do was sell to make ends meet. This taking 20 million and drilling these wells for these producers is really picking winners and losers. We don't do that for any other industry. Shoot, we wouldn't even put $3 million to help a community on a flood issue. But yeah, we're going to take 20 million there. So then the second question I have for those that sponsored the amendment is, if these wells are drilled, who owns the water after they're drilled? And then what's the landowner's responsibility? As I go through this water bill, it shows all of these projects, and there's 25 to 50% responsibility on the landowners. When I look at La Prairie Dam, on the dam itself, pretty minimal responsibility. I don't see any input from the producers on this 20 million unless I'm missing it someplace. So this is a complete infusion to help pick a winner when you could look across all of Wyoming's economy, and we don't do it for anybody else. That runs afoul to what we do, and I would encourage us to vote this amendment down.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So members, this is kind of an idea that didn't come before Select Water. So why am I speaking on the dam or even the omnibus water bill at all? It's because I'm one of the few members still in the chamber from Select Water Committee. So just providing some context for the members here of what has happened, what hasn't happened. So La Prairie, the dam as a whole, we understood the problem in Select Water. We put the money in the bill to make sure that we fund the dam. The concern, I think, from the producers is that while the dam gets rebuilt, there is a long period where they will not have the same amount of water they've had previously, because there will no longer be storage available to them. So the question before the body becomes, should we subsidize this part of allowing them to build wells? And it probably won't be for all landowners, because I think it's only in a specific table that wouldn't actually be accessible to all landowners. So even if they built the wells, they would probably have to build canals to get water to other landowners. That'll all have to be up to the district. And so is it worth us putting 20 million of our savings to go towards that project? I think it is a good idea to help some folks who will be harmed for the next 5 years. I think this is actually a program, and if this amendment passes, you might see me in second reading. I think this is actually a program where it does make sense to be a loan program instead of a grant program, because we are basically giving people access to a resource that they're going to be able to continue to use even after the dam is put up. So maybe we make this a loan program where they can pay back the state and we don't actually lose $20 million permanently. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Larson, JT.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members, thanks for the discussion. I agree with a lot of what the good representative from the east side of the winds said. If we're gonna do projects like this, I support it totally. I think we should support projects like this, but we can't treat different communities differently on project to project. Last year, there was an amendment that would have potentially helped my community. So that way we had backup water if our power went down. And it was clear to the commission that they didn't want to do that. So I just kind of am torn here when we're trying to do backup water for another community and we're all going to be on board. I just don't think that's right. We have to kind of treat communities across the state the same way when we're going about these things, to be equitable and fair. So on and against the division, and look forward to more discussion.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, this is kind of a twofold approach to this. Okay, the water would belong to the state of Wyoming. It would be for sale as supplemental water to the irrigators during this construction period. And as you know, we only irrigate a few 6 months a year, so that water does become available to industry and further on down the line. So I think this is a great idea to explore to see if the water is available there. We're not sure that it is available and in what quantities. So I think by doing this test well and looking at a broader future for this water, I think this is gives us an excellent ability to further the state of Wyoming.
Representative Banks.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I think we're kind of doing apples and oranges here, because in these other situations, in this situation, the state came in and said, we're taking this dam out. That's the state who picked the loser in this situation. They said, you are going to suffer because we have made this decision. Well, I think that also the state needs to come up then with an alternative for that. And this is the alternative we came up with, because this mandate was set by the state. And so I believe that the state has a responsibility to say, okay, in the meantime, while we're doing this, that we put a mandate on you, we're going to give you some help. And we're going to say, hey, you can irrigate with these wells. You can continue to keep your livelihood, which would have been fine if the state hadn't stepped in the first place, the opportunity to continue to do so. So I think it is, just as the good representative here said, it's the state's responsibility, because the state is the one who controls the water. And so I just think that this is a kind of a common sense thing that we do to follow up with our mandates that we've set for these people. So again, on and in favor.
Representative Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple of different questions. How did you come up with the 20 million? What research have we done on the aquifer, so we know the likelihood of what type of water and how deep of water we're going to get? How many wells are we looking at? So has any type of a plan been developed so we can know what the likelihood of success is, the cost, the actual costs? Is this something to be an emergency well so that you're going to start drilling immediately this spring? How deep are they? And then what is the plan for who's going to own and control and operate? And how much is each well? Do we know what the cost per well? How'd the 20 million come up with? That's pretty expensive for a bunch of wells.
Representative Larson Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And listening to the comments, it just appears to me that we don't follow our own rules, which is to look at the study first, determine if it's ready, then move forward. We've fully funded this whole thing and says, go forth and do it. We heard some comments that this is really good because it will be state water and then it'll be available for industry. So the question is has any industry come forward and say, we need that water? As industry said, they'll pay for the water. There's just a lot of unconnected dots. Now, there's the point that was made that we're comparing apples to oranges and that, we wouldn't be in this situation were it not for the state's decision to close this dam down or do that. But I think the state engineer has this obligation, this statutory requirement to inspect dams. And in inspecting the dam, found out that the dam was flawed. And responding to that responsibility, made the decisions he did. And so I would like clarification. Are we of the opinion that one day we just decided that we'll make life miserable for the producers below La Prairie and build a new dam, or was there rationale behind that? And I do not, and I would push back on the argument that it's apples and oranges. I don't care what industry you're in, what business you're in, there's forces that sometimes come into play that are beyond your control, and you've got to be able to respond, live through, or adjust accordingly. And we can't always expect that the government's going to step in and make it better for you. And I think that's exactly what we're asking the state to do in this situation. And just really does seem out of line for, and I sympathize for those producers. I do, but I sympathize for all of those that are subject to foreign pressures on their commodities and pressures from different administrations on rules that then depict on their ability to use our natural resources. We don't go in and bail them out. So anyway, it's a fun conversation.
Riveting conversation. Representative Eklund.
Mr. Chairman, so more history, been here a while, and I know how this thing is, think I know how this thing is evolved. This is a honeycomb construction that wasn't used very long. This is the last reservoir of this kind left in existence by decades, I believe. The first sister dam of this type failed after 10 years. So it's a testimony to how good we build dams in Wyoming. That thing has lasted and served its purpose really well. The irrigators came to the commission for help, as I recall. The inspection may have started with the irrigation district, but I don't know how that all worked out. But we have problems with the dam, and we're working as fast as you can to rebuild the dam, and I hope it gets done quickly. As far as the money for the $20,000, I question whether we'll ever get past the legalities of putting in a dam that could possibly recharge any part of the North Platte, and I don't think we'll want to open that modified North Platte compact again. But that would be one of the interesting things we might be able to gain, is what we can and can't do. And they've talked of drilling down into an aquifer that's deeper, and I don't know if I can say the name, but those are fairly expensive wells, but it could be a possibility. It just depends on what we can find out as to what our allocation or water allocation is and how it would affect the whole river system, because that argument might be used. If we can't do it, we can revert that money back into our LSRA, I think is the way the thing is done. But it is an exception from what we generally do in our water bill, but we don't usually blow up dams either. And in defense of the state engineer, he's doing his job, and it's not just a mandate, it's a safety deal for that whole area. And if this dam that he's breaching were to rupture, I think we were filling it maybe a third, not enough for the irrigators at the time. But if it had ruptured and caused loss of life, I think we'd have trouble ever rebuilding the dam. So I support him in that effort. Things have been said that may indicate that he's in the wrong. I don't think he is. But I also support the idea of trying to determine if there is another option, and that's what this money does. I don't know if 20 million is needed, but we can discuss that further.
Further discussion on Division 1, Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. I will tell you, I don't even know where to start. This does affect me greatly. There's a lot I would like to say, and if you have any questions, I would please ask you to come see me. We have done everything in our power to slow this down, the destruction of the dam, so we weren't put in this position. We've asked just to take the top off, leave us enough for a little bit to keep some water and keep our water rights. What's going to affect us? They're telling us 5 to 10 years before we'll see a dam. That dam has been there since 1909. Everyone on that creek has built because there's been a dam there. If we don't have that dam, first, if all this snowpack that they're saying could come at us, we're going to lose homes, we're going to lose buildings. That affects my family. That actually affects my parents. I am up over the hill. I will not have any irrigation water for 5 to 10 years. This was to open it up. This money that they've done is just to see, it's exploratory. If we can't use it, if there is no water, it will revert back. It is something then we will be able to buy water exactly like one of the other representatives was explaining. It's to get us through. We did not ask for this. We have been working on trying to get repairs. Many of us shareholders have been trying to slow down the process. Let's see if we could repair this dam, not destroy it. It's affecting us. We don't want to spend this money. It was owned by 104 shareholders. It was done in 1904. This has been in my family 4 generations. I have my children and my grandchildren living on this place. It's going to change everything. I am racking my brain on how to look at, to redo our, how we make a living, how I am going to buy hay. What do I do with the equipment I have payments for? The pivot that we did put in, because they tell us as the state comes in and says, if you will do some of these, your water will go further. You can do extra things. So we have pivots sitting there now we will not be able to use. I have gone to every different agency, department here. What can we do? I will tell you, this idea came from some of the departments so we can explore, so we can look at some other ideas. And they've said, what can ever we can do for you and for the people that are there? We did not ask for this. Some engineers, the engineering firm that we had come, to start. It was, the state told us who to call. And they came in and they're like, it's so dangerous. I will tell you, I don't feel it's as dangerous as they are saying. Granted, now we're on this, this path that we can't get off of. So this dam holds 20,000 acre feet. For the last 7 years, we have kept it exactly 11,000 acre feet. So obviously we don't even have the water that we normally have, but we've made it work. And we've kept that even in snowpack. But they're saying if this dam was to have the full 20,000 acre feet, plus all that water coming out, plus a rain, That's the scenario they did to say it was so scary that we're going to kill 64 people and 8 cars on the interstate. That's what they did. So we have been trying to say, slow down, let us look at finding other engineers. Let us save our water rights. Do you guys realize that if 5 years, if we don't have water on that land, we lose that water goes down to Nebraska, they can take our water from us? This is the problem, and I have been fighting this since October. That has been my life. Called everyone I could think of, please help us. So I want you to understand what this is doing for us and to us. We didn't ask for this, none of us. I didn't want to say anything. I don't want you to hear that we're begging for money, that I can't even vote for any of this stuff, but it is affecting me and my family. I've got aunts and uncles and cousins that have been there since day one. So that if you have any questions and if I haven't answered them, please come to me. I will tell you we're a proud bunch. No one's begging for money or anything. If anything, we're begging to give us some time to stop the destruction. Do you know right now they've got equipment up there taking down our dam? I've been through losing a child, having a house burn, and we can make it through this. But the thing is, it is another huge, huge change. And until you've owned land, until it's a part of you, if you need to know more about it, please come. Thank you.
Representative Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to get a little clarity here. My understanding is that this was built by the federal government back in the early 1900s. And then now the state is trying to do the right thing by a reconstruction, not just taking something away, but doing a reconstruction of hundreds of millions of dollars to put it back right because we care about our people. But at the same time, it has to be equitable. We have to treat everything across the board as it is. We've spoke about fires, we've spoke about floodplains. Go across the board. Everybody has a problem, and we're here to solve those problems. But you have to go about it at a way to where it's doable and equitable across the board. Thanks.
Representative Alamand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Folks, this is a real problem. And I want you to remember one thing that I've heard in this body over the last 20 days. To Wyoming, water is gold. And it does not matter whether that water falls from the sky or is pumped out of the ground. To Wyoming, water is gold. I want you to remember another thing. The state of Wyoming knew this dam was failing 5 years ago. What did we do? We ignored it. Then we turned around, we ignored it again, when we could have today had a brand new dam sitting there, and we would not have to worry about this $20 million going into water studies in Wales. The dam would have already been there. Federal government would have paid for a lot or most of it. And we would not have this problem today, except we drug our feet. And then I hear about winners and losers. These guys in this area are real winners. They have been paying their property taxes, their sales taxes, since 1909 from this dam. Please think about it. Think about the humanity that we need to put forth to help these people, and let's do what's right.
Speaker Nyman? Nope. Representative Minority Floor Leader Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So members, yes, I want to make it clear, I support the motion. I think it's important to make sure that we grant some relief for these folks, but I do want to correct the record on some things. We didn't do nothing. If you see in the bill, we have $30 million set aside for the dam. The concern has always been how do we rebuild the dam without hurting folks in the intervening time? So we've had that $30 million sitting aside to get it ready because we knew it was going to happen. The issue was this last year, it became such a situation where the process had to be sped up. And it's always been a safety issue. And I understand that the folks in the district, they don't want to lose their rights, right? They don't want to lose their livelihood. They don't want to lose their water. So they wanted that dam to stay up as long as possible. I get that. But now we're in a situation where the dam is going to come down. And so we got to deal with it. And so the question is, how do we deal with it? Do we do nothing? Do we do something? This is at least one way, even if it's, kind of a little half-cocked now. We're only here once a year, so we got to figure out what we can do now, and hopefully the exploration will be good. Yeah, with that, vote for the amendment. I'll probably bring a second reading anyways, but I do support this amendment as is for now.
Any further discussion on Division 1? Seeing none. Oh, Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to hopefully wrap this up, close this out.
That would be great.
Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of separate this out, have two separate discussions, appreciate all the conversation on it. I think on this division, vote your conscience, vote what you think is best for Wyoming. But I encourage members to think about the entire state when they're looking at different projects around the state and the needs. And so, I came down here to support my community. You came down here to support your community. And I think we should all try to help each other in that. So vote your conscience on the division. But really, we need to start thinking about supporting everyone's community. So, and I just look forward to further discussion on that. Thanks.
Committee, in no way am I trying to stifle debate, but I just want to bring to your attention, we are going into our 35th minute of debate on this particular amendment, and we have 4 more amendments still left to go before we will go to lunch. So just giving you a heads up. Representative Nicholas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So ladies and gentlemen, the biggest problem is we just don't have enough information. So it seems to me we're probably premature on a full amount of $20 million because we need a plan, we need to be educated to make these kind of calls. The question is, do we leave the 20 million in and then get the plan, or bring back or ask for a plan and bring back in $5 million to get 1 or 2 wells drilled to get it started to see if it's going to work? It seems this just has to be all or nothing. But the problem is we just don't have enough information. And so if someone can bring us that information in the next couple of days, that would be great. Or if the folks that worked on this, if there's more to it, it seems to me that we ought to deny or the 20 million, but come back with something that will work so that we can drill a well or two.
Ladies and gentlemen, while you're speaking at the microphone, try to keep your hands away from the mic because these things are very touchy and they like to shut you off. So that being said, seeing no further discussion on Division 1, question being called. All those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, Division 1, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That amendment has been adopted. We are on to Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, Representative Schmid. Representative Minority Floor Leader Yin.
Mr. Chairman, while we let Representative Schmid get his stuff together, just to talk on because this is the omnibus water bill, debate makes sense. It's a big bill. I just wanted to overlay the process for the members of how this works. So the omnibus water bill, we have 2 bills that come out of select water, construction and planning. We hear the construction bill this year. The other side is hearing the planning bill first, and then we will send them over to deal with both ends. The projects that go into the bill are recommendations submitted by the Wyoming Water Development Commission, which is a 10-member board, to determine what are the kind of projects that we want to fund in the state of Wyoming to help with water. Those projects come to the Select Water Committee. So both the Select Water Committee and the Water Development Commission hear those projects together. The commission makes recommendations to the committee deals with those recommendations, and then we deal with them on the floor. So that way, we get very well vetted, just like many of our other omnibus bills, very well vetted projects that we can then debate on the floor to do with as we like, but at least we know that these projects generally have been well vetted, except when we put amendments on at the end. But that is our will, right? We can choose to do what we want, whether it is to, because we're the appropriators, we can determine that there are projects that don't make sense for us to do, there are projects that do make sense to do, and it's not just an automatic rubber stamp of the commission's recommendations, but that way it comes to us, so we can choose how to spend our money, the state's money and the taxpayers' money.
Thank you, Minority Floor Leader Yin. Representative Schmidt, please, Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill 117.
Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. So, yes, this amendment deals with the cloud seeding situation in House Bill 117. As I sat through the committee meeting hearings and listened to the experts on this proposal, all I heard was comments in support of it. As I asked questions about any long-term effects, there wasn't any real answers. I guess the biggest question I ask is, how do they know this works? I don't know what the baseline is, because we don't know what Mother Nature would have gave us in the 20 years that this cloud seeding program was going on. So I don't know how they can tell us that this is a positive effect when we don't really know what Mother Nature would have done. Now, they say they talked about some studies, but the research shows, and what I found with one of my fellow legislators, is that the studies are basically just opinions in support of the project. Again, no real answers into the long-term effects of what this program could do. So I've done a little research of my own. Cloud seeding is proposed to enhance precipitation in one place, but it can also reduce and lead to possible drought in other places. The increased moisture can cool the air and can alter wind patterns, humidity, and pressure systems, potentially influencing broader weather patterns. Silver iodide, the chemical that's used in the cloud seeding operation, then settles on the ground through the precipitation. And it also states that long-term accumulation in soils and water systems could alter chemical compositions affecting plant growth and aquatic ecosystems. Now, why I'm concerned about this is because where I'm at in the Upper Green River Basin and the highest mountains we have in the state in the Wind Rivers, this has been an ongoing project for 20 plus years. There's two things that have been happening up there in the Wind Rivers that people have been concerned with, and our state agency that deals with our wildlife issues has been studying, is the loss of our glaciers at a fair rate, and the loss of our bighorn sheep population in the Wind Rivers. That Whiskey Mountain bighorn sheep population once numbered 2,000 to 2,500 animals, 25 to 30 years ago. Today, that number is less than 500. That used to be what I called the hatchery of bighorn sheep translocations around the country. That's where they went to get bighorn sheep and transplant them in different states everywhere. It's not possible anymore because the sheep aren't there any longer. So I started looking more of my research into these problems, and it's amazing what I found. Just a few things I'm going to read to you. Birds and mammals constantly exposed to silver iodide could suffer lung irritation and long-term damage, as well as causing respiratory issues that can increase susceptibility to infections like pneumonia. Chronic exposure to airborne particles may cause irritation in the respiratory tract, leading to inflammation. Inhalation of particles can stimulate excess mucus, which may trap bacteria and create conditions for respiratory infections. If silver iodide accumulates in the body over time, it can potentially impact immune functions, making animals more vulnerable to infections. While silver iodide is generally considered low in toxicity at typical cloud seeding concentrations, persistent exposure in localized areas could lead to unknown long-term effects in wildlife populations. Even though pneumonia is usually caused by bacteria, viruses, or fungi, chronic lung irritation from pollutants like silver iodide can make animals more prone to infections. Studies on silver iodide nanoparticles suggest some neurological and reproductive effects in animals. So this leads me to the story of the bighorn sheep. What the researchers have found in the bighorn sheep population is two things that's causing the decline in the numbers. They're extremely susceptible to pneumonia. The adults are dying of pneumonia. And number two, they're having extremely low lambing rates. They're not generating any young. Could this be it? We don't know, because I can't find any reports on the long-term effects of this. That's one issue that I'm concerned with our bighorn sheep numbers. And then coming to our glaciers, long-term use of silver iodide can contribute to glacier reduction by moving snowfall away from existing glaciers that would have normally contributed to more accumulation on those glaciers year to year. Silver iodide particles then accumulate on the glaciers over time. When it does, it can also darken the face of those glaciers. If it does land on the glaciers, it can darken that ice, which attracts more heat, and in turn creates more melting at a more rapid rate. Cloud seeding can increase short-term snowfall, the experts say, but it also leads to more rapid melting due to changing thermal dynamics, where glaciers can experience a net loss over the long term. Folks, the two things I'm concerned with are two things that are just iconic to our state. Bighorn sheep and the once massive glaciers in the Wind River Range, something that's unique in the lower 48 states, and we're losing them both. Is this the problem? I don't know. I don't know if it's the problem, but I think it deserves a pause. And let's get some of the experts to research this and see what these long-term effects really are. If we lose our bighorn sheep, we lose part of who we are. If we lose our glaciers, we lose that water too. This is something we really need to think about. One action can cause an equal or opposite reaction. Is that what's going on here? Could be. We need to hit the pause button. We need to study this a little bit more, and we need to look at the long-term effects of this operation. If we had real solid evidence against what Mother Nature could produce, that'd be one thing, but we just don't have it. And the experts don't know either, because they couldn't answer any of the questions. So I'm on and for the amendment, and I ask you to do the same. Thank you.
Representative Nicholas.
Thank you, on and against the amendment, ladies and gentlemen. So, number one, we had bighorn sheep on our place outside of Lander for many years, and they slowly dwindled away. Over the course of the years, the Game and Fish transplanted them back 2 or 3 times to see if we can't get them to come back. We didn't have silver iodide. It was something else. So this is a chronic issue going on all over our Wyoming Wind Rivers mountains, and it's a real problem. But I think we can say fairly clearly that it is not the silver iodide problem. The Game and Fish do extensive research to find out if this is a cause. I used to be the attorney for the Good Game and Fish and used to spend a lot of time up at Whiskey Mountain, helping them out and being part of that clan. And so they have done extensive studies, and they continue to do the studies. And to date, there's nothing they can find that would tie it to the silver iodide from cloud seeding. But what we do know, from most folks who are familiar with the cloud seeding, it does increase the amount of snowfall. They have percentages, the data is obviously not perfect, but it definitely increases snowfall. And more snowfall we have, the cooler it is up there, and the more preserves our glaciers, and the more water melt we have. So I think over the past 30 years, it's been relatively consistent that this is a good program and it's a good thing. Do we need to know more about it? Absolutely. But you don't pause it unless you have to pause it because you've got data to prove it, and we don't have that. What we do have is that it's still working, and it hasn't they haven't been poisoned yet, and the belief is that this is not impacting the mountains.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members on and against the amendment, and one thing I would say is I would encourage the good bringer of the amendment to come back with a second reading amendment to do a more in-depth study on the concerns he has regarding this. And if he wants to do it he could do it as an amendment in this budget or in this bill, but put it under a different agency so that there's that separation. And so just a thought there. But members, studies have shown that the use of silver iodide in cloud seeding is safe, as it is a natural salt compound. Silver is widespread in the natural environment, and sampling within cloud seeding target areas found silver to be undetectable above naturally occurring background levels. Silver from cloud seeding is incredibly hard to find, even with the most advanced equipment. They've done tests in our rivers downstream of cloud seeding, and they have not been able to detect a concerning amount of silver iodide in our water. Actually, it's undetectable in the parts per million. So that's just some data in support of cloud seeding. I think, this amendment could send a bad signal to the lower basin states that will decrease our positioning power in the Colorado River Compact. Those lower basin states are looking for every reason to attack us on what we're not doing enough to conserve or increase the yield of water. So I think we just need to be very careful when we're talking about this amendment. It sends a very bad signal to the lower basin states. And I'd encourage you to vote this down. And I would actually even work with the bringer of this amendment for a second reading amendment to do a more in-depth study so we can see the effects on the bighorn sheep population and glaciers. I think we should do a more specific study so we have accurate data when we come to the mic. So with that, on and against the amendment, look forward to further discussion.
Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no data in Wyoming to support the cloud seeding works. I care deeply about water. I'm Secretary Treasurer of the No. 9 Ditch. I run a haying business, and there is absolutely no data to support this. We all received an email regarding the importance of Wyoming's 20-plus years of cloud seeding and appropriation of $1.2 million for more cloud seeding projects. The email stated that a study analyzing the effects from and the value of cloud seeding was and found this to be an effective operation. I thought, data, I'll bite. I'll go and read that. If you read that email and you open the attachments, you'll find that the attachments consisted of one promotional pamphlet with the picture of the airplane about cloud seeding, and then the second attachment was a series of resolutions supporting various water projects, including cloud seeding. No study was attached. The email referred to a presentation available online, so I went to the YouTube, if I'm allowed to say that, video, where this study was presented, and I have here for your review, if you're interested, a summary and complete outline of the entire 3-hour presentation. Here's what was presented and what the email referred to as a study. This study is a computer model used to simulate the weather and predict changes in the weather based on changes to input variables. A computer model was run to predict changes in precipitation based on assumptions about cloud seeding. A computer model was fed assumptions based on 27 cloud seeding efforts. The computer model predicted an increase in snow. That's your study, or what they said was a study, a computer model prediction based on a limited amount of data. No review of existing scientific studies or literature on cloud seeding. No review of empirical findings from case studies or field experiments in scientific literature. No use of controlled versus experimental regions showing how a change in controlled variable generates a change in outcomes. No presentation of any empirical data collected with an explanation of how this data was collected and adjusted for any statistical anomalies. No statistical analysis of any empirical data because there was no empirical data. I'm a biologist and I've read a lot of studies. For 20 plus years, Wyoming has been funding cloud seeding projects in this, and I assumed that we would have some data to show for it, and you know, we just don't. I am on and for the amendment. I think we need to defund this because there isn't a shred of data supporting this expenditure here in Wyoming. Thank you.
Representative Banks.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. You know, I've supported this cloud seeding efforts for the past 2 years. And you've heard well, it can have an impact here, it can have an impact here. I think there's so many environmental impacts, or factors, that it's hard to tell if there's an impact. I think it's probably a good idea that this year we go without it and see, you know, is this going to have a significant impact on our precipitation, easy to say, our water downstream? Is it going to have an effect? If we go without it, let's see if there's a significant impact. And so I think this year we might have a different kind of study that says, well, one of the factors that's not there is this cloud seeding. And I think that it's a commendable move at this time, so I think I'd support this amendment.
Minority Floor Leader Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So members, I think I am on and supportive of this amendment. So cloud seeding is a debate that we have almost every year that we have an omnibus water bill, actually. And I've been generally on the we don't need it. So the reasons that I would bring before you, one, I think the chemistry is not a big issue. I don't think the silver iodide's a huge concern. The geoengineering part, probably, right? How much are we affecting other areas by taking the water out of the system here, or where we get cloud seeding? I think that's a mild concern. The biggest issue always for me is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the amount of money that we're putting in worth the amount of water that's coming out? I would say there is some amount of water. I think the stats that we got in Select Water and that were presented to House Ag does show that there is some increase in snowpack. How much of that actually makes to irrigators, I think, is certainly debatable. But ultimately, the amount of water that we get from snowpack increase from the data that they were able to achieve. For me, I don't know if it's worth it, especially because it's really just in that one kind of band in the southern end of the state, and it doesn't help, frankly, a lot of the state. Maybe it will help the downstream folks in the states below us to meet our needs within that basin, but frankly, I never thought the juice was worth the squeeze. I will say that so there are two types of cloud seeding. There's a ground-based system and an aerial system. We do both. The aerial one is definitely way more expensive than the ground-based system. I would be supportive of just keeping the ground-based system. I think that juice might be worth it. The aerial one, I don't think I would be for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All across North America, it seems that the glaciers are receding. We've gone back, I've been all the way up there in Alaska, and they say it's this, it's that, it's whatever. So I'm pretty sure they don't seed clouds up there. Toxicology report ought to be able to, with the people that take care of our animals, determine if this is in the sheep. Who knows? It's a 70-30 split. The state of Wyoming pays 30%. 70% of the funding for cloud seeding is from private industry in the state of Wyoming. And they're at the agency that takes care of our water. They have a lot of data, and perhaps that's where we need to go to find out any data about this cloud seeding. And the final thing, it may be this year that we are not seeding clouds, because the one thing that has to occur before we can seed a cloud is we have to have an event. And if you look out the window here or out the window at my house, we haven't had very much of the events in order to seed this year. So we'll have to see how that turns out. Thank you.
Representative Eklund.
Mr. Chairman, so kind of echoing on the last speaker, we haven't had the events and the snowpack isn't there. But I've talked about this, I don't know how many years, defended our cloud seeding. We've found out we have a lot of data. And I think the agency that has collected this data could probably send it to all of us. It's more than you'll stand to read. There's a pile of it. And we were the ones that proved on the ground that it would work. You could prove it in the laboratory, but we had the ranges of mountains that were necessary to run the tests. You'd have ranges running parallel. Those were the two that I know best. And a storm would hit both ranges and you'd seed one side and leave the other side alone as a control. And the amount of precipitation increase was easily worth the money that we've used. Now we use airplanes. In defense of the airplanes, we can target the exact center of the storm to increase cloud seeding. And the last thing I'll say is that what happens on that west side of the state doesn't just affect them, it affects everything that happens in this city. And they put $50,000 a year into our cloud seeding efforts. And when we get the ground seeding efforts back under, they're probably going to even fund more of it than that. As far as the silver iodide, they have found it in parts per trillion. And up until recently, you couldn't even when I was in college, parts per billion was the best we could do. Parts per million were the best we could do. Then parts per billion, and now we're at parts per trillion. And that is negligible enough that I don't believe it's affecting very much the silver iodide. And I would be opposed to this amendment. Let's continue the efforts we've done, make sure we get every drop of water we can into our river systems and keep the reservoirs full.
Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency that they were referring to that is supposed to be collecting the data for the last 20 years is the one that sent out the No Wyoming data. So that there's no data that correlates with any increase in snowfall. They don't have the data, or they would have sent the data. So I am on and for the amendment. No data equals no funding.
Any further discussion on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1? Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I might push back a little bit, or maybe I'm a little bit confused because I'm looking at a study, granted it was conducted from 2005 to 2014, but it did include yes, computer modeling, but that's, you can expect computer modeling in lots of different studies. But it's also, it conducted physical studies, environmental studies, and the like. And so I'm happy to share that with any folks that, and discuss further whether or not there is actually a study out there. That being said, I think that the idea of the good representatives from Sweetwater County to say, hey, let's continue to look at it a little bit, and maybe on a second reading amendment, include that as part of this. I don't think it's time yet to axe this program. I think that there are good effects that appear to be coming out of this. Increasing our snowpack 5 to 15% in the study that I'm seeing. It affects our irrigators, it affects our municipal water supplies, and it affects our recreation, tourism, all those sorts of things. And so I hesitate to actually cut this out of this bill at this point in time, going off of a few perfunctory looks at what data might be available, and I'd love to discuss it further.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nature has proven itself to take care of itself time and time again. I think we should just leave nature alone. Thank you.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I got this information from our water office. A hydrological assessment of precipitation and stream flow impacts due to targeting these mountain ranges was conducted by NCAR using a suite of advanced modeling tools along with flight level cloud measurements and ground-based weather data. For the North Platte and Little Snake River basins combined, the simulated seeding effect on precipitation ranged from a maximum of 14,000 acre feet to a minimum of 6,000 acre feet with a mean value of 9,500 acre feet. In terms of stream flow, seeding simulations showed the largest impact on the upper North Platte and upper Laramie River basins with an estimated mean increase in stream flow of 2,828 acre feet and 2,356 acre feet respectively. Costs for producing stream flow by cloud seeding ranged from $56.15 to $124.22 an acre foot, with the mean being $81.87 acre foot, and that is for airborne operations. So there's some data for you.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and probably for the amendment, but I just want to make some clarifications on some information. I took a tour of the area where our bighorn sheep are and where our populations are struggling, and met with the lead scientist that deals with bighorn sheep issues. This is not why our bighorn sheep are struggling, so I just want to make that clear. There's tons of other reasons. Habitat is a lot of it. Disease, although not related to the iodine. So just for sticking with facts, our bighorn sheep are not dying because of cloud seeding. When we talk about models, we talk about science, yes, the evidence on cloud seeding is mixed, and it's mainly because the variables are, you can't control them. And yes, you have to use modeling because you can't put weather in a vacuum. So it's questionable. I mean, I'll say my first year in the legislature, I voted against the water bill because it included cloud seeding. So I'm not here to support or really refute cloud seeding, but I did want to just have some clarification when we talk about, you know, what's impacting our wildlife. It's not cloud seeding, but yeah, vote your conscience on this. I do think it would be a good idea to have a report on the data rather than just cut it, because I think there are instances where it works well, but the data is just not going to give you a clear picture because it's weather. So vote your conscience.
Any further discussion on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1? Seeing none. Question being called. All those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment number 1, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Standing Committee Amendment Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 has passed. We're on to Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, unless I see my majority floor leader, which I don't. So Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, Representative Larson JT.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I respectfully withdraw Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2.
Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2 has been withdrawn. On to Committee of the Whole Amendment number 3, Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 3 and ask for your consideration. I'm not going to go favorable or unfavorable. I think it's a discussion that we should have, though. So in Select Water, when we talked about the LaPrelle Dam, we actually didn't talk about taking money from other places to use for the LaPrelle Dam. It was a motion that Select Water made, that Select Water as a committee did, but it wasn't a recommendation from Wyoming Water Development. So the organization that does, the commission that we created to deal with giving recommendations for us on water. So what this amendment does, I'll just briefly tell you, is it makes it so we don't take money from another dam to fund this, the rebuilding of LaPrelle. And so the policy question to you, frankly, is do you think we are going to fund Alkali in the future? If you do, this is just a choice of spending the money with one dam now and then spending the money with the other dam in the future. If you don't, then you probably might want to keep it with Alkali just so it doesn't become a risk of not being funded in the future. So it really is just a policy question of how do we fund LaPrelle Dam? Does it come at the risk of another dam? And if we don't adopt it, basically we will leave the Alkali Creek, if we do adopt the amendment, we will leave the Alkali Creek project at 59 million, which is what they were before Select Water brought this bill. We would fund the LaPrelle Dam completely out of the LSRA. And so that's the policy question and debate I would like you guys to have. I'm probably going to be a no on the amendment just to respect the work of the Select Water Committee, but I thought it was worthwhile to have that conversation because I think you've seen it in some articles where is this building one dam at the expense of another? I'm not sure if that should be our goal.
Vice Chairman Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I'm going to say is I couldn't agree more. Let's respect the work of the Water Committee and vote no.
Representative Larson JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also on and against the amendment. Members, we have a lot of money already coming out of our LSRA, and I think that we should stand with the decision of the committee to move the money from Alkali to LaPrelle.
Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 3, I'm sorry. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 3 to House Bill 117 signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 3 has not been adopted. We are on to Committee of the Whole Amendment number 4, Representative Larson JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll go ahead and move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 4 to House Bill 117 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, this puts the Bitter Creek Revitalization Project into the water bill, and it's without spending any additional dollars. These dollars were already appropriated for redundancy projects in the last year's water bill, and so instead of having those funds revert, it's just committing them to the Bitter Creek project, and it requires that matching ratio in order for the city or county to access the dollars. So just wanted to bring this as another way of funding this and ask for your aye vote.
Representative Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, folks, we're here bringing this amendment to try to help our community out. We asked for data earlier. Well, in the last The last 8 years, we've had 3 or 4 100 to 300 year flooding events across town. And I wish we could use props because I would print out a bunch of pictures and show you cars being pushed down a street or, local shops being inundated about 1.5 feet high or 3 foot high of water. This is a good project. It's well needed like everybody else's, and we're all out here advocating for it. I please ask you to consider this. We looked for another funding source. We found some freed up cash. This is not bringing an appropriation to the budget. Please be in favor of this amendment.
Any further discussion? Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, just so for some context, as far as I understand, the group that this project would be replacing wasn't going to spend this money. So again, it's money that we had appropriated and agreed to spend, but the agency that we were telling to spend the money wasn't going to do anything with it. So it's money that we have available to support a community, just as we do with all of our water projects.
Any further discussion? Entertaining a motion? Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 4 to House Bill 117, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 4 has been adopted. Division being called. All those in favor, please rise. All those opposed, please stand. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 4 has not been adopted on a 29-30 vote. We are on to Committee of the Whole Amendment number 5. Members, you'll want to refresh your screen. This was just recently put in. Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 5 to House Bill 117. If you'd refresh your screen. Members, I think as I look at this water bill, there's 90 million in general fund at this point for the dam, the La Prielle Dam, and had folks from nearby community, the county seat of Converse County, reach out to me about this. And I know a good representative from that area is part of this in this irrigation district, so I didn't want to, so I thought it'd be important for somebody else maybe to bring this. But Highway 91 just drives right by the property. And it's, I don't know, probably 10, 12 miles from downtown there, from the Jackalope City, I guess it's called. But here was a couple things. This public benefit part, when we're going to put at least 90 million of state money, it's not going to go down, it'll only go up over the next couple of years. There should be some public benefit to this. And I mean, there certainly is with the irrigation and the 105 or 7 folks that are in that district. But as you read paragraph A, it's just got some project specifications for this and conditions. So A is that it's managed by a government entity. Project maintains continued public benefit. B, the reservoir is designated for public recreation, including boating, swimming, and fishing. And C, the area surrounding the project designated for public recreation. I've got some maps. I didn't want to run copies. I can send those to you, but there's some wonderful state sections right there. And of course, we have Natural Bridge just up the road from it. It's an incredible area. Many of you have been there, so it's, and as we kind of grow this number 2 industry as well, and I think for the people that county seat there, the Jackalope City, I think it'd be an important asset for that community. But, and then D, the public road that's there is a state highway runs right by it. And then I just threw this in there, E, I mean, you could, and this was suggested to me by some folks in Douglas, be named the Douglas Recreational Lake to indicate the regional significance. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Representative Banks, Vice Chairman Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess a little concerned and just a little clarification of, is this something the Select Water Committee has talked about before? Has it come through their processes? I guess why are we trying to bring this in an amendment on the floor when this Select Water bill and stuff has been worked through the Select Water Committee and they've chosen not to have this language is my question for you. Thank you.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To kind of answer that last question, this project was kind of a last minute thing in Select Water, really, that was added as well. So we didn't really have a lot of time to go over the stipulations of the project in Select Water. But I am on in support of this amendment. I think if the state is putting dollars into it, it should be used, the reservoir should be open for and available for public benefit. And so on in support of this amendment.
Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. I will tell you, it's not that I'm against this, but I think we should not be bringing this up, putting it on a bill till we really look at this. Again, I want to really let you guys know it's a 20,000 acre feet of water. If you could drive up and see this, you guys would be all on top of each other. Just throwing that out. I don't even know. Part of that reservoir is actually on private land. This dam was always owned by shareholders. One reason it was never open to the public, we were told the insurance to have it as public as we wouldn't have even been able to afford it. And then if someone was to drown in there, they'd drain the dam and we would have to look for the body. That was part of the issue. That park they're talking about, Natural Bridge, is not a state park. It's actually county. The land was donated and it is a county park. I think it's a great idea, but this needs a lot of work. You're opening up a huge can of worms by adding this on there right now. Again, I know there's some state land there, but I'm not sure. I would have to look at it again, but coming off of that highway, I'm not sure how much of that is state or a lot of it's private, but not all of that reservoir is actually owned by the state. A lot of it's on private land. So I think this needs to be, none of us are against it at all. It just needs a lot more work than throwing this into this bill. So I would respectfully be a no on this, and I do know all of us that are part of this. It's something we've looked at. Other thing I'm going to throw out, we're all worried about the state putting something into this. There's one project that I've asked, and I've run around and I've tried to talk to as many people as I could. Why are we not looking into hydro? There's so much in that. I mean, the state we could make money off of hydro. I know the state's putting in a lot of money into it, but we've had no thought process into tearing out someone's livelihood, which belonged to the shareholders, and taking it out, but yet not put some thought into it. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, there's lots of things to look. If we're worried about money, let's look into this other option and really think about this before you add this to this bill, please. Thank you.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the bringer of the amendment, my question is, how much eminent domain are we looking at here?
Minority Floor Leader Yin.
So, Mr. Chairman, so from my understanding, there is land that touches the reservoir that's owned by the district that would provide an access point. So I don't think there would be any eminent domain requirements. And two, the hydroelectric part, I believe is in the amendment. So it is the subsection A in the amendment. I think that if we are building a new dam, it is important for us to evaluate whether that is possible. So at the very least, I definitely support that hydroelectric part.
Representative Harshman.
Mr. Chairman, a couple answers to questions. The hydro, I actually have an amendment for hydropower. I think if we're going to build dams, it ought to be the number one thing we do. It's the most reliable, most dependable, cheapest generation of electricity there is. So I have that amendment. I just didn't want to bring it on first reading, slow this down, but I wanted to get this idea out. The next question from the good representative from the Trona County about eminent domain, you know, I don't have that answer. I don't think much of any. State Highway 91 nearly runs right by it. And there are a couple state sections that cross into there. I just want to, so I don't know that, but I think it'd be much more eminent domain just for the dam site, certainly to build that. It's going to be a project, and the roads and the construction on all that. Certainly support this, but I think as we kind of grow our state and we build this new dam, that'll take us into the next century with a significant amount of state money. There ought to be some public benefit, and it just, I think, enhances that community, the Jackalope City. So it'd be, I think, a great thing. So appreciate your consideration, and we'll keep working on this. Thank you.
Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is an interesting idea, just to expand what the public benefit is to it. Not sure if this is the current form that I would ultimately like to end up with, but just as a little bit of a comparison, the quick numbers I was able to pull up, we're looking at about, if what I'm looking at is correct, 728 acres of surface area for that reservoir. And for comparison, in the land of wheat where I grew up, there was the Little Res is about 250 acres, and that it's a privately owned reservoir with management by the Game and Fish, or the Guts and Feathers Department, and there's boat ramps and everything else for public access. I would be concerned if there is an eminent domain situation with this, so I think it deserves some further look. And so just keeping that in mind as we proceed forward through the next couple readings as well.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be just a little bit concerned. I mean, we've got this dam going forth right now, and we get to bringing all these other components in here. We could darn sure slow down the development of this. So I think we need to be specific on our issues here. That's the way it's been presented. And I think that's the way it's easiest permitted. So I agree with a lot of these other things, but maybe that's something we can look at down the road as we're in this process. But I'm afraid if we bring it up front, it's going to cloud that permitting process all up, and we will be stagnant.
Any further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 5 to House Bill 117, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 5 has not been adopted. Any further discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Bear's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so at the recommendation that House Bill 117 do pass, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 117 is passed Committee of the Whole. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Committee of the Whole rise to sit again at 2:15.
Committee announcements. Got none. Okay, you have all heard. We are in, Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 2 will be meeting in 5 minutes in room 301 to discuss the General Government Appropriations Senate File 1, as well as House Bill 249 as a re-referral.
Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee number 3, Revenue, will be meeting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in the extension room number 5, and we will listen to 2 bills, SF 48, Business Property Exemption, and SF 49, Tangible Personal Property Index and Depreciation.
Seeing nothing else, we will stand in recess until 2:15. Is that right? Is that all we're doing is 2:15? 2:15, all right, 2:15 it is.